Hey YouTubers, this is the GSTV viewer coming at you with another video for you guys today. So it's been a topic discussion video that kind of inspired me was that recently I read an article regarding the announcement that Disney Channel had decided to pull the plug on Girl Meets World after 3 seasons. Now, it's not necessarily going to be a whole rant video considering about my thoughts on Girl Meets World and my reaction concerning the cancellation. Now, there's going to be a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's going to be a topic discussion concerning just the current state when it comes to live action programs, especially catered towards children. Now, even though I'm out of that demographic range per se, it's been a long time since I've seen a live action kids show that really stood out from one another. Now, reading this article concerning the reason behind Girl Meets World's cancellation, it's a combination of a bunch of things, but it was actually really doing well in terms of the ratings, especially being the number one show on Disney Channel. But the really downside is that because Disney Channel is catered towards the tween audience from ages 6 to 14, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of viewers under that target range that was watching Girl Meets World. But the Girl Meets World audience, that the people, the majority of those that watch Girl Meets World consist of young adults that grew up with the original series, Boy Meets World. Now, that was one of those reasons. Now, the second reason, and this is the particular topic, the particular reason that kind of inspired me to make this video discussion just now, is that the reason being is that the show creator Michael Jacobs had considered to start making the show tackle a lot more serious issues. Especially if you look at Boy Meets World, especially in its later seasons when the kids started getting older and they started to really go into more deeper topics such as like drinking when Corey and Sean end up getting drunk. I think at the episode after Corey and Topanga broke up after an affair that Corey had during the ski lodge or the ski lodge, excuse me. But you get the idea. There was actually an episode where Sean actually joins a cult, which was also something that the actor Ryder Strong, who plays Sean Hunter, also kind of brought up in an interview about how the difference between Boy Meets World, Girl Meets World, and um, just some of the just basically trying to amp up the tone of the show, especially going into season 3, that they had the main characters go into high school. So Michael Jacobs was considering to kind of make the show a lot more serious while at the same time keeping the show a little more lighthearted. But he was really willing to take that next step. And there was also, I think, another. It's not so much, I guess you could say, but they were actually Disney Channel were deciding that because the actors are starting to get older, particularly the main characters, since they're, um, they were they were kid actors when started doing this show, but they were starting to get a lot older, and they were considering to replace the actors. I don't know how accurate that rumor is regarding Disney Channel's uh, executive meddling, I guess you could say, but they were going to consider replacing the actors but still keep the same characters, which kind of I can't really I don't have any thoughts I could say about it per se. The creator of the show had decided to wanted to get the show to get a lot more mature, but Disney Channel, knowing their shows being catered towards the same genre, especially for a young audience, and the fact that especially a channel like Disney Channel had been dominant when it comes to live action shows, that genre being none other than sitcoms. Now, Disney Channel had didn't want them to go in that realm because you could go so far into trying to make the show a lot more serious, and Disney Channel just wasn't willing to do that. So that kind of those factors combined could have likely have led to the cancellation of Girl Meets World, and that's kind of something that really inspired me to make this video, which kind of is more of a rhetorical question, but it's also kind of something that kind of really ask myself, especially when it comes to these live action kid shows nowadays. It's like, are there many? Is there a lack of serialized live action programs for kids nowadays? I mean, if you look back, especially for these kids networks like Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, a lot of their original shows, especially in this day and age, have really consisted of shows that are catered really towards the sort of more of the same genre, if you could say. I mean, that being situated comedies. And my point is that these shows, they're a lot of them are just very more formulaic. They're produced by, have the same production values, they have the same tone, and they have a laugh track. They're cheap to produce, shot at the live studio audience. And it just kind of really just asks yourself, is there a whole lot of variety when it comes to live action programs on those particular networks with Nickelodeon and Disney Channel? And I hate to being the nostalgia tard, but even just fast, backtrack a couple decades ago, especially with Nickelodeon during its golden era, as a lot of fans would tend to dub it as. But even during the 90s decade, you had a lot of variety of shows that were not just the same genre, or it was just the same amount of shows that are similar to one another. In the 90s, you had your cartoons, with your Nicktoons. You also have, your live action shows. But it's not just live action shows per se necessarily, but we're talking about those live action shows that have a different sort of uniqueness to them, or different genres. You had your sitcoms, with Kenan and Kel, all of that, Amanda Show. And then you even have some of the other middle of the road type shows that were shot on location, shows that were science fiction. There used to be a lot of science fiction in Nickelodeon in the 90s. Game shows as well. Look at Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple. Even when I go back to science fiction shows, you had The Secret World of Alex Mack. A show that centers around this teenage girl that gets these sort of powers after an accident that happened, that had this a chemical spill that caused her to gain these powers, and nobody except her sister and a few others already knew about. And Space Cases, that was a forgotten TV show, but Space Cases centered around these group of kids, and even a pair of adults that get stranded in the middle of the galaxy. They get lost, and they're gonna try to find a way to get back to their home. Are You Afraid of the Dark? A horror anthology series, similar to the Twilight Zone and Tales of the Crypt. That show was pretty unique for its time. But yeah, the whole point that I'm trying to get out of this is that there was just a lot of content you could really that makes people want to go back and really see why people appreciate a kids network like Nickelodeon back in those days, because it wasn't just one show. It wasn't just all about the same cookie cutter genre. It's not just the same show, just with a different cast, or a show that's just very cheaply produced that doesn't really break all boundaries. I mean, that's what you kind of get with Nickelodeon today. There's just like you'll have your cartoons, and then there comes the live action stuff. It's just like it feels like you're watching the same show. Especially with Dan Schneider being one of their most profitable creator when it comes to some of their TV shows. iCarly's, Victorious, and The Salmon Cat for a short time. I mean, all these shows were produced mostly by this guy. Even Disney Channel. Disney Channel is just a big victim. I think that was one of the reasons that kind of instigated this whole trend of having the show being cheaply produced. Shows that are kind of produced in the same fashion, with the same tone, same vibe, just same production values. They've been guilty of this for quite a long time. I guess you could say when you go back to like a show like That's So Raven, and that, which was like one of their most popular, highest rated original programming of the last 10, 15 years. And ever since then, Disney Channel, a lot of their original programs were produced under the same production value, and most of the shows that they produce are created by the same company. It's Lap Productions. I mean, why do you think there's hasn't really been a show that is very down to earth, or a show that's not hokey, that doesn't have a laugh track, that's not cheaply produced at a live studio audience? I mean, what happened to shows that were shot on location? Even the fact that Disney Channel just doesn't want to create a show that's a lot more deep. I mean, even during the early years of Disney Channel. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about the old days of Disney Channel, but when they do, they don't really go way, way back. But I'm not just talking about like Even Stevens and Lizzie McGuire and that particular period. I'm talking about the shows that came way before them that not a lot of people seem to acknowledge for some reason. But I'm talking about some of the earlier live action programs that Disney Channel had produced. You had the famous Jet Jackson. Famous Jet Jackson centers around this young teenage boy, a popular actor who's shooting this TV show, and now he just moves all his production to a small town, spend time with his family and friends. Hence the monologue of the show's opening credits or intro, but you get the idea. You even had the Jersey, which was a lighthearted version of Quantum Leap. A group of kids that get to wear this special jersey that gives them the magical powers to leap into their favorite sports athlete. So weird. I already made a discussion video. I even made a review on that show once again, and how this was about this girl that encounters a lot of paranormal activity, that is willing to find out the truth, or to kind of figure out the mystery regarding the circumstances surrounding her father's death. I mean, those shows used to be very deep. In a Heartbeat, which was kind of like a kid-friendly version of ER. Even the show that centers around these group of teenagers that work part-time at a medical hospital, work as part-time EMTs while attending high school. I mean, there's a lot, even some of their earlier shows, there was always something different. There was always, like, I don't feel like I'm watching the same show. Ever since after So Weird and those shows went off the air, it's like Disney Channel just, over time, just started to become what it is today, for better or worse. And a lot of these shows kind of really felt like the same production values. They all have the same tone. I mean, it's not so much that they're all sitcoms, because I mean, I enjoy any sort of TV genre, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's action adventure, if it's a drama, or even sitcoms, because I grew up with sitcoms, especially as a kid. Don't get me wrong, but there's just so much that's the same that kind of that leads you into thinking, what's the point of watching this particular network if they're all showing me the same stuff, just with a different cast or a different premise or a plot? I can't even tell the difference between some of their modern day shows. I mean, if you could tell me the difference between um, Austin and Ally and I can't. I haven't really watched Disney Channel in a long time, so please bear with me. If I were to tell the difference between Austin and Ally and um, God, or Austin and Ally and Liv and Maddie, I mean, I would even know what show I'm watching, if especially if I'm watching it with my younger cousins or all that. I can't really tell which show I'm watching. It's the whole point is that when it's all said and done, is there a lack of live action kid shows nowadays? That's kind of the question that I'm asking you guys. Now, I think there might have been a couple shows, especially in this day and age, or shows from a few years back. I think I remember R.L. Stein's The Haunted Hour. That was also a show, the horror anthology series that was just based on the movie from a couple years back. But there was actually a couple ones I think I might have remembered. Um, yeah, that show I remember enjoying that, and it kind of reminded me of some of the older Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark type of sci-fi shows. I think there was like Wizards versus Aliens that aired on the Hub as well, but that show was international, and I don't think it's running anymore. Uh, I think there was also a series of Fortune events which I have not watched, but it just came out on Netflix just recently. But but other than that, I can't really think of any live action kid show that's airing at the moment. And I don't count some of the DC Marvel shows because those shows are skewed at an older audience, so I don't count them. Let me know what your thoughts are concerning this current state of live action shows, especially when it comes to catering towards young children. But I'm just going to leave it to you guys. What do you think about the current state of live action kid shows nowadays? And yeah, I would like to hear your thoughts. And till then, this is the GSTV reviewer signing out.